My name is Rose Watson, and I've been married for a decade, living separately from my mother-in-law who resides far away. Recently, I learned that she's retired and suffering from a debilitating backache, preventing her from working. Consequently, my husband has been diligently sending her money each month. "Hey, make sure to transfer this month's money to Mom, will you?" he asked. I assured him, "Sure, no problem. I won't forget." "Even if I forget everything else, thanks. That helps a lot. I appreciate it." My husband visits his mother at least once a month, assisting her with tasks she can no longer manage. However, on one occasion, he returned from her place agitated, suddenly accusing me. "What the hell have you done?" Perplexed by his sudden anger, I stared blankly as he continued accusing me. "All this time, I've been struggling to send her money, and you didn't care about my feelings. I told you to transfer $1,000 every month." "I did transfer it," I insisted. "I'm telling you it's not been transferred. Do you have any idea how hard it is to send that $1,000? "I understand. I've had to take part-time jobs and scrounge for money just for that," he retorted. "Knowing all that, why didn't you send it?" "I did send it." "Why are you saying this?" "Just calm down a bit," I urged. "How can I be calm when Mom is struggling because she doesn't get the money from me and has even started doing piecework?" he exclaimed. "But I definitely did send it." "Are you saying my mom is lying?" I questioned. "Then there's no way my mom would lie to me. You can't just make an assumption and then get mad when it's not true. I don't even know why this is happening. I've been sending her the money you give me every month." "Then why is she doing piecework?" "She's in pain, lifting heavy boxes." "I don't know about that. I haven't seen it." "You never go to my family home." "I go every month, but you never come with me." "You just don't care about my mom," he accused. "That's not true. There's no need for me to go every month, and it's so far away." "I don't want to waste my only day off," I defended. "Waste your day off? It's visiting family. How can that be a waste?" he argued. "Well, that's your family. You wouldn't think twice about it, but you don't go to my family's house, do you?" I responded, "Of course not. You married into my family, but I didn't marry into yours. You shouldn't say things like that. It only causes trouble," he countered. "You're the one causing trouble," I muttered to myself, wondering if he even realized what he was saying. Frustrated, I tried to escape to the kitchen, but he followed me, still angry. "Huh. I'm not running away. I just want you to calm down. Maybe we should have a coffee and talk this through," I suggested. "I don't need that. Give me back all the money I've been giving you to send to my mom," he demanded. "Why are you saying that? I'm your wife of 10 years. I've never lied to you. You should just believe me when I say I've sent it," I pleaded. "I bet you've been spending my money. What'd you buy? Where's the $1,000 going every month?" he accused. "If I had bought something, there'd be new things in the house, right? But there aren't. If it were clothes, there'd be new clothes, but there aren't. I haven't bought a single piece of jewelry since we got married." "I don't understand why you're accusing me," I defended. "Even so, you must be using it for something. Or maybe you're saving it for yourself, planning to leave me," he speculated. "Why would you even think of divorce?" "We have kids," I questioned, bewildered by the sudden turn in our conversation. "I would never entertain such thoughts. How am I supposed to know I can't trust someone who lies like you? Why won't you understand that I've been sending the money to your mom? Then why isn't it reaching her? I have no idea. Could you be sending it to the wrong place? No way. I have your mom's bank account number registered with a bank. Unless she changes it, there's no way that could happen. Then the only thing I can think of is that you're stealing it." "Stealing?" "Yeah, that's right. You're stealing my money, not sending it to my mom. That's it. I want a divorce. I can't be with a thief like you. Let's get divorced. It's clear you've been stealing the $1,000 meant for my mom every month." "Hold on. Why does it have to come to this? What about our kids?" "I don't care about the kids. I don't need a wife who makes my mom suffer." No matter how much I tried to have a rational conversation, my husband just couldn't stay calm. and to say he didn't care about our kids. I've been desperately trying to make him believe me, but it's been hours of getting nowhere. Then there's nothing else to be done. After 10 years together, thinking this, I quietly responded to his demand for divorce. All right, divorce it is. Kicked out by my husband, I left the house with our child. Make sure you file the divorce papers. Conveniently, he had already prepared the divorce papers, as if he knew this would happen. I never thought I'd have to sign something like this, but now there was no other choice. I left the house, went straight to the office to file the papers, and decided to stay at my parents' house for now. My child was shocked by the sudden turn of events, but all I could do was reassure them with empty words, "It's going to be okay." Then, after settling down in a new place with my child, I got a call from my ex-husband, Mark. Something weird is happening. Out of the blue, Mark started talking as if we were still married. "What do you want with me, a stranger?" "Now, I know we're strangers. You call me suddenly. Don't even ask about your child, and say something weird is happening. You sound much weirder, you know." Well, here's the thing. I've been sending the money to my mom myself, but she says it's not being transferred. Maybe you're not transferring it. That's impossible. I did it myself. I don't know about that. Maybe you're doing it unconsciously, or perhaps you only dreamed you did it. Don't compare me with you. Then don't call me. I'm not free to deal with this. You're working as usual. So, you're free. How much more will he belittle me? He must think I'm just sitting around doing nothing. My bank statement shows I sent the money. The money's been withdrawn, but my mom says she didn't receive it. What do you think that means? Maybe you sent it to the wrong person. Then where did I send it? I don't know. Maybe you're giving it to some other woman. That's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous to even have this conversation, but Mark doesn't seem to think so. Anyway, I have nothing to do with it. Wait, that's too cold. You can't just cut ties so easily. I'm not cold. The moment you decided on divorce, you were out of my life. How can you cut ties so easily? A woman doesn't look back. What's the use of dwelling on the past? On you, it's a waste. I'm in trouble here, not my problem. Can't you at least listen to me? How utterly self-centered. All right then, start from the beginning. Tell me what's happening and what's going on. Well, it was the day I said I wanted a divorce, remember? I went to check on Mom at her house, right? I asked her why she was doing piecework, even though I send her $1,000 every month. She said she hadn't received any transfers, so she had to do piecework to get by. Now I get it. That's why you were so angry, and you thought I was pocketing the money. Yeah, that's right. But even when you transferred it yourself, it didn't get there. Yeah, that's what's happening. So doesn't that mean it wasn't me? Well, I don't know about that. When you were in charge, maybe you were pocketing the money. That's awful. If that's what you think, then I'll go to your family's house myself. What are you going to do there? Maybe I'll find out something if I go. Yeah, maybe. So we ended up going to my husband's family house together for the first time in a while. When we got there, his sister was there. Oh, why are you here, Selena? I came back because I'm worried about Mom. What about your husband? We're divorced, just like Mark. Oh, so you divorced and came back to your family home? Yes, I did. When did you come back? 6 months ago. 6 months? Never mind that. Mom, is it true that you didn't receive the money I sent? It's true. It doesn't change the fact that the money wasn't received, whether both of you are here or not. But did you print out your account record in your bank book lately? Yes, I did. Just 2 days ago. Can I see the bank book? Sure, you can't show that. Why would you show a bank book to someone else? You're a stranger now. Why would you think she'd show you something so important? Are you out of your mind? But we can't know if the money really wasn't deposited unless we check. You don't need to see it. Then I'll look. I'm her son. It shouldn't matter. Fine, look. There's hardly anything in there anyway. My mother-in-law said this and then fetched the bank book from a drawer in the next room. But when we looked at the bank book, there were deposits and withdrawals. Look, Mark, there's a deposit from you here. and it was withdrawn the next day. That's quite punctual. Before this, even if you deposited it, it wasn't withdrawn immediately. I couldn't go to the bank much because of my back pain. I would wait until it was absolutely necessary, but since Selena came back, she's been going to the bank for me, which has been a big help. Ever since Selena returned, she's been the one going to the bank. The money was always withdrawn the next day, according to the bank book. Mark and I instinctively looked at her. What? I don't know anything about this, she said desperately. But from what we see here, it looks like you withdrew it, Selena. Mom doesn't go to the bank, and maybe someone else has Mom's card and is withdrawing the money every month. I don't have a card. I'm afraid of losing it, so I never made one, she replied anxiously. Tell the truth, Selena, Mark urged. All right, it was me. Mom told me to withdraw the $1,000 she was getting each month. I saw it was being deposited every month, so I thought borrowing a little bit would be okay. If you're borrowing it, are you planning to pay it back? I interjected. I intend to pay it back. I just don't have the money for it right now, she confessed. Why would you do such a thing? Mark questioned. I really needed the money. I only borrowed it because I had to. Besides, Mom's managing to get by. Isn't that fine? Selena justified. Were you that desperate for money? His mother softened her tone and asked. Then Selena completely changed her tone from her previous assertiveness, now playing the role of a pitiful victim. If that's the case, it can't be helped. Mark was kind enough to send the money. But this is an unavoidable situation. Yeah, if sister was in trouble, it's the family's job to help after all, Mark reasoned. Despite his rage and accusations towards me, Mark forgave his sister as if nothing had happened. Hey, I was called a thief over this, and now you're just going to let it go because it's your sister. It can't be helped. She said she's in trouble. That's fine for your money, but don't you have something to say to me? I challenged. Not really. No, not even an apology after all the horrible things you said to me. Why should I apologize? I don't see any need to. I was hurt by what you said, Mark defended. Such a fragile mental state, I muttered to myself. Anyway, it's not like I did anything wrong, right? Selena was having a hard time, so this happened. It's not Mark's fault. He doesn't need to apologize, his mother supported. Isn't this just like being completely surrounded by enemies? Even if I speak the truth, this place is hostile territory. There's no doubt that anything I say will be met with opposition. Even though a quick look at the bank book would have clarified everything, I had to travel all this way just to be treated like this. Fine, if cutting ties with you costs me this much, it's a small price to pay. I'm leaving. Drive me to the station, I demanded. Why do I have to take you? We're divorced, remember? I don't have to do anything for you, a stranger, Mark retorted. Because I came all this way for you. You asked me for help, I argued. Did I? I don't remember asking you to come. I just wanted some advice. You came here on your own. You can leave on your own too. Mark snapped. That's right. You're not a couple anymore. Why should he take you? It makes sense for a husband, but not for a stranger, his mother added. What a group. No thank you or sorry for solving the issue. After spending 10 years with such a man, it felt like such a waste of time. Fine, I'll take a taxi. I don't need you, I declared, frustrated. I called the taxi and somehow managed to get home. As I arrived home, tears of frustration streamed down my face, and I swore never to listen to that man again. However, after a while, my husband called me. Maybe he had changed his mind and was about to apologize for what happened. Perhaps he'd explain that he had to act that way in front of his sister and mother. But my expectations were shattered. Can you lend me some money? He asked abruptly. Shouldn't you say something to me first? Oh, long time no see, I replied. That's not what I mean. You're being troublesome, you know. It's not normal to ask for money without even apologizing first. That's not true. We were a married couple after all. You could say we were a united fate. That's not the case anymore. The day we split up, our united fate dissolved. I still think we're a united fate, though. He keeps saying whatever he wants. So lend me some money, will you? Why? The truth is, I found out Selena has a huge debt. Wait, it's been quite a while since that day. Didn't you ask her what she spent the money on? I couldn't ask her that. It would have been too pitiful. Money is a delicate subject. Maybe her ex-husband had something to do with it. Or there might be some other reason. Sure, there must be some reason. But you should have asked about it for the future, right? I trusted her because we're family, and yet there was no trust for me at all. Well, I've known Selena way longer than I've known you. Yeah, since we were born. That's why I trusted her. I thought everything would be fine, but in the end, it wasn't fine. So what happened? It turns out she had a huge debt, and the $1,000 a month wasn't enough. How much does she need then? She wants to repay it all at once. It's true that paying it off in one go would save on interest, but I don't have that kind of savings. So why did you contact me? Because you said you had a good amount of savings when we were in the car going to your parents' house. I remember. I was insulted by him, saying I must be struggling without money since our divorce, and that I would have stolen the money if he continued to ask me to make the transfers. Angered by his belittling words and the assumption that I couldn't survive on a part-time job, I ended up revealing that I was trading stocks and making a good profit. But would that lead to an ex-wife being asked for a loan? Selena says she's in debt for $30 million. $30 million? Yes, so please lend me the money. It's okay, right? First, why does she have such a huge debt? I was curious too, so I asked her. It turns out most of it was from shopping, and it's all brand items. She just can't control her desire when she sees them and ends up buying things. She put everything on revolving credit, so the interest adds up, and she keeps buying more every month. Before she knew it, her debt reached $30 million. She's really careless. Mark, laughing off his carelessness, is quite careless himself. She didn't understand how revolving credit works. She thought she could just pay a set amount each month, and eventually it would be paid off. I guess I can understand that feeling. I can't understand it at all. How could she take such a risk? And wasn't this the reason for her divorce? Now she finally realized the interest is piling up, and it's becoming a serious problem, so she came crying to me, but I don't have that kind of money. I told her I couldn't give more than $1,000 a month. Then she suggested borrowing from you. What? Why me? You said we were strangers, and you didn't even need to drive me to the station. That's all in the past. The past should be washed away like water under the bridge. What a selfish and convenient way of thinking. Would anyone accept that? So you could afford to lend it, right? Well, yes. I do have that much in savings. Then lend it to me. I just made a lot of money with stocks recently. So you win some, you lose some with stocks, right? Yeah, that makes sense. But didn't you say stocks were like gambling? Isn't it gambling? You always ridiculed me for playing the stock market, calling it a gamble. Right, did I? When you wanted a divorce, you hurried to separate because you said having a wife who gambles on stocks would lead to trouble. I said that when I didn't know how much you had saved. So that's why you asked me how much I had. That time you ridiculed me, but then I mentioned I had savings. Well, yeah, I didn't expect you to have that much, but I'm glad. I inquired, but even at that stage, you still dismissed it as gambling. Well, yeah, but let's not worry about it. I was foolish. All right, that's not all right. You are really cruel, and now you want money I saved for our child. You're worrying too much. Our child won't need that money for a long time. It's silly to start saving from now. Money rots if you don't use it. Money rots. I've never heard of money rotting. Think of this as an investment. It's like investing in me. Why would I invest in you? Just do it. Lending me the money would be the smartest move, right? Look, if I lend you money, it won't come back, right? You're still sending $1,000 a month to your mom. Where will you find the money to pay me back? All right. I'll pay back $11,000 a month. Are you crazy? How many years do you think it will take to repay it that way? Don't say that. I really regret it. Regret? Yeah, if we hadn't split up, I wouldn't have to beg you for money now. I have to ask, isn't that unjust? So you're just after my money? No, it's not like that. We don't have love, but we can rely on each other. It feels like I'm only being relied upon. You're so rigid. Thinking like that won't make you happy. We could even remarry. I didn't mind our marriage that much. Wow, I do mind. I don't want to be with someone who can't apologize. Fine, I apologize. Sorry. Is that good enough? What are you apologizing for? Explain in 400 characters or less what you did wrong. Ah, I just apologized because you said so. Pathetic. Don't ever call me again. Why? I apologized, so will you remarry me or help me? My sister is suffering. Shut up. Go to hell. Saying so, I forcefully ended the call and blocked his number. Later, I heard from mutual friends that Mark, despite saying it was impossible, couldn't refuse Selena. Being not only constantly nagged by Selena, but also persuaded by his mother to help. Consequently, he ended up borrowing money from a consumer finance company to repay her debt in full. Everything was settled, assuming Selena would work and gradually repay the debt. They thought so. However, far from working, she resumed her shopping habits. Despite having suffered before, she again made purchases on revolving credit. This burden eventually fell directly upon Mark to handle. When they confronted her about why things turned out this way, she reportedly said, "I never intended to buy anything." By the time I realized it, I had already processed the credit. Mark and his mother, naively believing Selena's words, just accepted it, saying she must be sick. They neither devised any solutions nor took her to a hospital, despite thinking she is ill. While saying this, Selena, wearing expensive clothes and jewelry, is reportedly laughing over tea with friends, saying, "Really, Mark is so easy to manipulate." Eventually, they couldn't escape the debt and had to sell their family home. Now Mark, his mother, and Selena ended up living together, but they couldn't afford the rent for the apartment they used to live in, so the three of them moved. Apparently, their life is quite difficult now. It seems only Selena is enjoying it, but neither Mark nor his mother realized this. On the other hand, I continue to profit from the stock market and now live a comfortable life in a spacious apartment with my child. Despite your prolonged unemployment, you exude an unwarranted confidence, I exclaimed, lifting my gaze from the laptop where I had been diligently working at the dining table. A sharp pang shot through my neck, causing me to cry out in pain as I turned around to find my mocking mother-in-law brandishing a hair iron. I recalled seeing her preparing to go out in the washroom earlier. Now, she was pressing the hot iron against my skin. So even a parasite like you feels the heat, she sneered. I was just testing how thick-skinned you are. You're utterly useless, yet you live such a luxurious life. But I do work hard, I protested, feeling the burn against my neck. Why are you treating me so terribly? You call that working? Staying at home and being lazy is not a job, she retorted. It's about time you stop leeching off us. However, the true parasites were my husband and mother-in-law. Despite paying the $5,000 rent and covering living expenses and allowances for both of them, I endured such treatment. I've reached my limit. Leave this house immediately, she commanded, her tone dripping with disdain. Once I go, I'll never come back, I declared, gathering my belongings. Tears mingled with frustration and pain in my neck as I left my in-laws' house for good. My name is Kelly, 35 years old. It had been 2 years since I got married. Even before marriage, I had been working from home as a freelance writer. After my father's accident, I returned to my parents' home to support them. Gradually, I found success as a freelance writer, earning more than I did in my previous job. During a college reunion, I reconnected with Ben, who would become my husband. Despite our differences, we were drawn to each other, and soon we were married. However, tragedy struck when Ben's father passed away suddenly. We moved in with Ben's mother to support her during this difficult time. Living with my mother-in-law proved to be challenging from the start. Despite my efforts to support her, she never accepted me as Ben's spouse. Her constant criticisms and sarcasm wore me down. But despite the hardships, I remained resilient. I packed my belongings and left, determined to build a better life for myself. I pondered Mary's criticisms but obediently responded with a simple yes in the evening. She questioned, "Did you buy these ingredients from that store? How can you make such a meal with ingredients from there?" "It was from a nearby luxury supermarket." "I'm sorry if it didn't suit your taste, Mary. It's just a simple salad. Ben likes it, so I often make it." "But yes, that supermarket is quite expensive," I explained. "My goodness, how embarrassing. Act in a way that doesn't bring shame to our family. You never know who's watching," she sighed deeply, shaking her head in disappointment. In that moment, I made a firm vow to be recognized by my mother-in-law. From grooming to cooking skills, I worked hard every day. However, her critical eyes never softened. Initially, I took her sarcasm and cold words lightly, but they gradually began to feel crushing. I felt invalidated and powerless. I wanted to confide in Ben, but our life together had changed. We used to enjoy our time as a couple daily, but since moving in, our opportunities to see each other had decreased. "Sorry, I've been really busy with work lately," he said tiredly. Hearing this, I felt unable to speak my mind. But being human, I have my limits. I felt the need to share my stress with Ben. "Hey, I have something to discuss," I began. "Oh, I actually have something to talk to you about too. I quit my job 3 months ago." "What? Quit? What do you mean?" I exclaimed. "Don't worry. I've already started another job. Remember the select shop I always wanted to open? I finally launched it. I'm co-managing it with Senior Eric," he revealed. "You never mentioned any of this before." I responded surprised. Senior Eric, a widely respected figure in our university circle, was admired for his leadership and charisma. He had successfully developed and sold a game app in college and started a startup with friends, showcasing his talents. Ben, in his usual gentle tone but looking slightly guilty, said, "I didn't want to worry you or Mom. I'll work harder from now on. Will you support me?" I was moved by his words yet hesitant. "I'll support you, but about the rent for this house, can you cover all of it?" Ben looked at me earnestly and pleaded, "Please, Kelly. This has always been my dream. It's taking longer than expected to turn a profit. That's why I want to invest more in advertising. I'll definitely get this business on track before we leave here. I need your help to do that." Moved by his passion and earnestness, I couldn't refuse. I could afford the rent with my income, and fortunately, we had some savings. More importantly, I had never forgotten the day I chose to marry him, sharing and empathizing with his dreams and passion. "If you say so, I understand, but only until the lease on this rental ends. Also, I want to know more about the store you're running," I agreed. "Of course, thank you," Ben said, showing me the website of his select shop. I was impressed by its charm. "Is there anything I can help with?" I offered, but Ben firmly declined. "I want you to focus on your work, and please don't tell my mother about this." "I don't want to worry her," he requested. Necessarily, with this new development, thoughts of my mother-in-law completely left my mind. I was eager to support Ben's business, but the monthly expenses I had to cover kept increasing gradually. Managing the entire household budget, financially aiding my husband, and even providing an allowance to my mother-in-law became solely my responsibility. My only hope was for the rental contract to end quickly. "Kelly, could you put off your computer work for a bit and do some cleaning? Since you're staying here, you should be more proactive with the household chores," my mother-in-law instructed. I hurriedly replied, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mother. I'll start as soon as I finish this job." "This is your job. Enough excuses. Get it done quickly." "We have guests coming this afternoon. After you're done cleaning, please leave the house," she insisted. My relationship with my unaware mother-in-law remained unchanged over time. On days when she had guests, I always had to vacate the house after finishing the cleaning. It seemed I was bothering her. Fortunately, I could work anywhere with my laptop, which was a small consolation. However, one day held a different outcome. When I returned home in the evening, my mother-in-law, looking satisfied, greeted me with, "Welcome back. I tidied up your room." Confused, I rushed to my office. The room was indeed tidied, but my belongings were organized. In the center were a large suitcase and 2 duffel bags. "What does this mean, Mother?" I asked. "This room was initially prepared for guests. I can't accept someone with your lack of housekeeping skills using it. If you want to use this room, you'll have to pay an appropriate fee. If you don't like that, leave immediately. Don't expect to live luxuriously here for free," she declared. I swallowed my words. Why must I endure such treatment? As I silently bowed my head, my mother-in-law said with satisfaction, "I'll say it again. I don't accept you as Ben's wife." With that, she huffed and returned to the living room. Tears welled up in my eyes from frustration. I tried to contact Ben, but he didn't answer his phone. After messaging him about the incident, he replied, "Please bear with it a little longer." Unable to contain my anger, I poured out everything to Ben when he returned late at night. "Just hold on a little longer. I'm stressed with work too. Don't worry about my mother. It's just a bit more endurance," he said. "I'm paying the full rent, and now she wants me to pay for my room too. I can't tolerate her unreasonable demands any longer," I protested. After hearing this, Ben hurriedly tried to call me. "I'm really sorry. I'll talk to her once we leave here. You won't have to see her again. Please just bear with it for a little while longer," he pleaded. "Soon, and then I'll never have to see her again." Ben's words slightly eased my anger. The next day, Ben seemed to be talking to his mother. Before he left, we had breakfast together, but there were no usual sarcastic remarks from my mother-in-law. Since my room was tidied up, I decided to continue working at the dining table. "Are you leaving today?" My mother-in-law's words made me look up from my computer. Instantly, I felt a sharp pain in my neck. "Ouch, that's hot," I screamed, turning around to see my mother-in-law with a smirk, holding a hair iron. "What are you doing?" I exclaimed. That was all I could say as I held my painful neck and rushed to get a cooling pack from the fridge. Thinking back, my mother-in-law had been getting ready to go out in the washroom earlier. She had used the hair iron she was holding against my neck. "So you can feel the heat too. I wanted to see how thick-skinned you are, living such a luxurious life yet being so useless. I work hard too. Why would you do something so terrible?" My mother-in-law scolded. "Working? You're just using your at-home job as an excuse to slack off. Nothing but an unemployed person. It's about time you consider our situation and become independent," she added. In reality, I was the one bearing the rent and living expenses, yet I couldn't understand. I couldn't comprehend why I was being treated this way. Before I knew it, I found myself glaring at her. What's with that look? The look of a pitiful person. I've reached my limit. Leave this house immediately, otherwise, I don't know what I'll do next. Am I really allowed to leave? I questioned. I won't come back here ever again, you know. Yes, that's fine. I'm fed up with taking care of poor people like you, she responded with intense pain and disappointment evident in her tone. Filled with a mix of emotions, I cried as I packed my things. Since my mother-in-law had already organized my belongings the day before, it didn't take long. I no longer cared about the fate of this house. I left my in-laws' home without looking back. After receiving treatment at the hospital, I went to my usual cafe to calm down. The spacious table arrangement and quiet environment were ideal for focusing on work. As I contemplated whether to contact Ben, I was suddenly approached. "Kelly, is that you?" To my surprise, it was Senior Eric. "It's been a while. How's Ben doing, Senior Eric?" "Long time no see. Ben is in your care. I heard you were the co-owner," he remarked. I apologized for not greeting him earlier, explaining that I'd only helped with the website design at Ben's request. However, Senior Eric was taken aback, saying, "Co-owner? What do you mean? I just helped with the website design on Ben's request." I was shocked. He lied. Then Senior Eric mentioned, "I heard you were the sponsor." This revelation surprised me. Ben had rented a different apartment and seemed to have worked hard for the first few months. However, he had others manage the inventory, shipping, and promotion for the online shop from the beginning. Despite Senior Eric's advice to do it himself, Ben insisted it wasn't the role of a businessman. As a result, there was no increase in foot traffic or sales, only mounting expenses. According to Senior Eric, Ben was now deeply involved in internet business, paying high consultant fees. He was living extravagantly, acting like a business owner and sometimes mistreating his juniors. I was at a loss for words. The reason I had to cover my mother-in-law's allowance was that they had used up my father-in-law's inheritance. Ben's recent requests for financial support were probably because his funds were running low. He hadn't told me about the inheritance, perhaps for that reason. Doubts connected with Senior Eric's words, and everything became clear. I got up, thanked him, and left the cafe. Before I knew it, I was in front of my parents' house. Seeing me with my luggage, my father looked surprised. Tears overflowed as I saw the faces of my parents, who I had been holding back my sorrow from. "Tell us what happened." "Your mom and I are always on your side," my father said. "That's right. You always try too hard on your own." Their warm words made me cry again. Crying, I told my parents everything. The terrible treatment from my mother-in-law and the fact that I was bearing all the expenses for my in-laws' house. My parents were both outraged and cried with me. "There's no need to go back to your in-laws' house. Live for yourself from now on," my father said. His words deeply resonated with me. After talking about everything, I felt a weight lifted from my heart. What had I been living for these past months? The only message from Ben was a short one, asking, "Where are you now?" After ignoring several similar messages, his attempts to contact me stopped altogether. My existence must have been just that insignificant, more than sadness. I felt a firm resolve just by having a meal with my parents. I could feel the warmth of a family. Maybe what I had been seeking were such simple moments of happiness. While staying at my parents' house, I gradually felt like I was gaining myself. About 2 weeks later, Ben called, probably because the rent payment was due. "Kelly, where are you?" "Have things calmed down with Mom? She feels bad about it." "Aren't you coming back soon?" he inquired. "I'm at my parents' house now. I plan to live here from now on. Your mother said she's tired of taking care of a poor person like me. And I'm not going back. Let's get a divorce," I calmly conveyed. "Wait, why divorce? If living with Mom is the problem, let's talk it out. I'm coming to pick you up. Let's talk in person." "Why should we talk now when there was no contact before? And how's your business?" Ben responded. After that question, there was a moment of silence. "Actually, I'm seeking advice from someone knowledgeable in business. There might be a big plan realized next month. That's it." "Let's go look for a new place to live before that," Ben suggested. "Don't change the subject. You haven't told me anything important. That's why I don't want to talk anymore." "I'll write the divorce papers and send them to you," I said and hung up the phone. However, that night, Ben suddenly appeared at my parents' house. I talked to him through the gap in the door with the chain on. "Kelly, please don't be mad. Let's go back. Mom feels bad about it." "Come on, stop sulking. I was kicked out of the house by your mother. Don't take it seriously." "Not take it seriously? Did you know why I left the house? Your mother pressed a hot hair iron against my neck and burned me. I don't know what else might happen, and there's no way I can go back," I explained, showing him the burn mark on my neck. "Did Mom really do that? I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Why didn't you tell me? Mom told me it was just a simple fight." "I'm really sorry. Are you okay?" Ben apologized. "A simple fight?" His flippant words made my anger boil over. I had planned to decide on a divorce without facing him, but my indignation overflowed. I felt the same anger towards both my husband and mother-in-law. I thought of blaming them thoroughly. The outrage in my heart seemed to burn. Anyway, I'm not coming back. You should go home too. I'll contact you again tomorrow, I asserted. Really? Will you actually contact me? I can't accept a divorce without even discussing it. If you don't contact me, I'll come back tomorrow, Ben said before leaving. I prepared and arranged to meet with Ben and my mother-in-law 3 days later in the afternoon. The place for the discussion was a cafe restaurant on the 30th floor of a luxury hotel. On the day, I dressed in a high-end brand dress, revealing my neck and styling my hair up. My mother-in-law looked displeased at the sight of me. Thank you for gathering today. I have reserved afternoon tea, so please enjoy it. I smiled at my mother-in-law and Ben. Ben seemed a bit relieved at my calm demeanor. Soon, tea and small appetizers were served at our table. Before we started eating, my mother-in-law began to speak. Kelly, I'm truly sorry about last time. I was wrong. Ben scolded me harshly. You'll forgive me, won't you? She pleaded. I didn't respond immediately and quietly continued eating my appetizer. Then, I turned my neck to show the burn scar. I can forgive you, but not until this scar fades. Also, are you aware that Ben quit his job? Ben shook in surprise, and my mother-in-law looked at him in astonishment. What do you mean he quit? He's been saying he's busy every day. He's busy right now. He's an honorable businessman. Wait a minute, Ben. My mother-in-law panicked. What do you mean, businessman? Did you start your own business, Ben? Explain yourself. As my mother-in-law interrogated him, I smiled contentedly while watching Ben struggle to make excuses. At that moment, the tea stand was brought to our table. I enjoyed the delicious-looking sweets while watching Ben and my mother-in-law argue. The view from the luxury apartment was great, but the view from this 30th floor cafe was also special. By the way, Ben, what have you been engrossed in lately? I inquired. I heard from Senior Eric that you quit the select shop. Is that true? I questioned Ben, who immediately lost color in his face, looking both surprised and scared. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law tightly gripped his arm, confused and repeatedly asking what happened. Why would you do that? I know everything. Ultimately, you were more obsessed with being a successful person than a businessman, right? Despite having no business sense, you just impulsively went ahead and ended up spending all the inheritance your father left, didn't you? I confronted Ben, while my mother-in-law's voice filled with suspicion and anger. Yes, exactly. Ben has used up all your inheritance as well, right? So, our household finances are completely depleted because of Ben, I explained, causing my mother-in-law to sink back into the sofa in shock and despair. I have been covering all the expenses for the house. Even the allowance you thought Ben was giving you came from my wallet. In addition to that, I've been paying for Ben's expenses while he's been gallivanting around as a businessman. I disclosed, watching their reactions carefully. Don't worry, Mom. With Kelly's income, we'll manage, Ben attempted to reassure her. But I wasn't having any of it. Don't joke. I heard you're getting into another business. We're already at the bottom, spending money and just playing around. Stop it now, I asserted firmly, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on us. As the cafe fell silent, I finished the tea left in my cup in one gulp and declared, I can no longer take care of you two, who are now penniless. You will need to take care of next week's rent payment, and regarding the divorce, let's proceed firmly through a lawyer. Ben pleaded tearfully. I don't want a divorce. Please don't do this. But my mind was already made up. My mother-in-law's face trembled with paleness as she begged for my help. You said before that you didn't accept me as family, didn't you, Mary? As compensation for the burn, I would like you to start with this payment. I hope you still have this allowance, I stated firmly, leaving the two of them in the hotel. Ben remained silent, ultimately saying nothing. Looking up at the high-rise floors from the ground, I hoped they felt the sensation of being cast down from heaven to earth, marking the end of my revenge. Afterward, we got divorced. Ben resisted at first, but when I threatened to report my mother-in-law to the police, he quickly agreed. I couldn't forgive my mother-in-law, but her disappearance from my sight would erase her from my memory. For that reason, I demanded a substantial amount from Ben for emotional distress. Later, they apparently moved to a cramped apartment. However, the relationship between my wasteful ex-husband and betrayed mother-in-law seems strained. Aiming for independence, my once arrogant mother-in-law is now reportedly doing part-time cleaning work. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought of that scene. Currently, Ben is struggling with debt and working multiple part-time jobs at night. It seems that working as an employee was more suited to his true nature. The active personality of Ben that I once found attractive was, from another angle, just impulsive and shallow foolishness. Living in the luxury apartment and the inheritance from my father-in-law must have revealed his flaws more clearly. I continue to work actively from my parents' home. I met with Senior Eric later and conveyed to him the details and my gratitude. He appreciated my writing skills, and now I am receiving work from him. For the time being, I plan to focus on living for myself with my parents. Our reservation for 7 people is accurate, and I kindly request a separate seat for a lady not included in the count. This request, typical of Elizabeth, my husband's mother, echoes her penchant for making loud demands and teasing me. However, today marks a turning point as I've resolved to expose a secret she's been keeping during our family gathering. I'm Natalie, a 28-year-old chef who graduated successfully from culinary school. I work at a highly rated Western restaurant in the city where I met George, a friendly customer who later became my husband. George inherited a historic electronics store, a beloved establishment in the community for 3 generations. Last year, George's father passed away, and he assumed the role of the 3rd-generation owner. My upbringing was in a household filled with culinary professionals, my father, mother, and even my brother. Growing up in such an environment exposed me to various cooking techniques and knowledge from a young age. Thanks to this upbringing and my innate talent, I graduated at the top of my class from culinary school. Despite my usual reserved demeanor, I've always been confident in my culinary skills. However, after marrying George, that confidence began to waver due to our close living arrangement with Elizabeth, which started shortly after our marriage. George's decision to live with his parents, a common practice in his family, came as a surprise. I had hoped to enjoy the early days of marriage just the 2 of us, but George's living arrangement was not disclosed earlier. Regretting it now wouldn't change anything. Living with Elizabeth turned out better than expected initially. She was kind, buying me treats from my favorite bakery, and even took on most of the household chores. However, there was one concern: the seasoning in her meals. Each dish was excessively salty, and while I initially attributed it to her northern origins, it seemed different from the preferences of others from the same region. I have a colleague from the north who prefers a lighter salt taste, making Elizabeth's dishes stand out. For instance, her stew, with vibrant ingredients, was overshadowed by an intense sauce, making it feel like directly putting concentrated sauce in my mouth. Doubts about whether this was the standard taste lingered, and my husband's comment about adjusting the taste to be lighter than usual only intensified my inner questioning. These days, consistently consuming Elizabeth's cooking seemed to have dulled my taste buds, creating a sense of dissatisfaction, even when preparing dishes at work. Doubts about my own sense of taste crept in, but fortunately, the head chef conducted the final taste checks, ensuring no major issues. Nevertheless, the heavy seasoning in Elizabeth's daily meals became a serious concern for me. To cope with this, I devised a plan. One solution was to wake up earlier than Elizabeth and prepare my own breakfast. While this noon routine prevented a decline in my work performance, it unintentionally led to a frosty attitude from Elizabeth. When I greeted her in the morning, she began to ignore my words and pass by. One evening, when I sought her opinion on a dish I had put a lot of effort into, she responded with criticism, questioning if I had seasoned it properly. Despite my explanation, she insisted it was bland, adding a significant amount of sauce to the dish. I couldn't help but feel that there might be some reason or background to her change in attitude. My husband has two older sisters, both of whom have established families. They welcomed me warmly from the beginning of our marriage and offered support if I ever had trouble with their mother. However, Emily, one of the sisters, had a different experience. As I helped with food preparation for her daughter's grand birthday celebration, the dining table was filled with a variety of distinctively unique and appetizing dishes. During the party, Emily's daughter expressed dislike for the stew, commenting on the heavy seasoning. When Emily suggested learning cooking tips from me, Elizabeth angrily exclaimed and left the scene, leaving me puzzled about the underlying issues in her behavior. I had some regrets about offering to help with the cooking from the beginning. The party ended abruptly amid a sour mood. While I believe Emily might have meant her words lightly, it was clear that Elizabeth had put love and effort into her dishes as well. It felt unjust for our heartfelt efforts to be belittled with a mere comment. That night, I lacked the courage to express my apologies to Elizabeth. From the next day onward, life became increasingly tough. Elizabeth would recklessly season the meals I carefully prepared, and on the worst days, she would even throw them away midway through eating. Seeking support from my husband in these trying times, I turned to him for help. However, his response was less than supportive, suggesting that maybe I had antagonized her and needed to listen more. As days passed, the strain in our marital relationship deepened. My husband started coming home late, claiming it was due to work, and even began missing family events. We were only married for half a year, so the idea of divorce felt premature. However, another hurdle emerged when Elizabeth tripped on our stairs and severely injured her leg. Despite Emily's kind offer to help with her care, Elizabeth insisted that, as the wife of the house, it was only natural for me to take care of her. This declaration changed my daily life dramatically, and attending to her needs became a relentless routine, even during work hours. Eventually, my colleagues' patience wore thin, leading me to resign from my job. When Elizabeth learned about my resignation, she seemed gleeful. From then on, my days were consumed with meeting Elizabeth's spontaneous demands at all hours, leaving my mind and body worn down. My husband's reduced presence at home added to my distress, and I began to doubt his reasons for working late. Pondering our next steps, I decided it was time to teach both Elizabeth and my husband a lesson. A few days later, during breakfast, I brought up the idea of divorce, shocking both of them. They questioned the sudden decision, expressing surprise and disbelief. My husband even suggested that my actions could tarnish our family's reputation. In response, I explained my dissatisfaction with the household environment and my determination for change. Confronted with my newfound resolve, they were taken aback. My husband apologized, expressing a willingness to be more attentive to our home life. He even suggested a break, understanding if I wanted to go to my parents for a change of pace. However, he requested that I still help Elizabeth due to her leg injury. Despite feeling disoriented, I sensed a hint of resentment in his words. I asked him to reflect on the situation, expressing my hope for positive changes if we continued to live together. I took a deep breath and calmly replied, "I'll think about it." At that moment, a smug smile appeared on their faces, revealing the evident blood ties between them. For the next few days, the atmosphere at home shifted. My husband began returning home earlier from work, but this improvement was short-lived. He soon started coming home late again, and Elizabeth's behavior reverted to its previous coldness. Despite her leg injury showing no signs of improvement, Elizabeth frequently went out without explanation. As I questioned her actions, I soon discovered a shocking truth. One day, my cell phone rang incessantly, with both my husband and Elizabeth expressing anger about me leaving Elizabeth alone. I sensed they wouldn't understand my perspective, and I revealed that I was at my parents' house. Days later, enjoying a peaceful time at my parents' house, I received an unexpected message from the one person I least wanted to be involved with, Elizabeth. The message contained an apology for her past actions and an invitation to her upcoming birthday party. Though reluctant, Considering it as a bit of a luxury treat, I decided to attend. The venue for the party was an upscale restaurant near the station, renowned for a new chef trained in France. Upon arriving, I saw George and Elizabeth waiting with smug expressions. The attendees included Emily, her husband, and their children, making it a small gathering of 8 people. As we entered the restaurant, I confirmed my reservation for 7 people. However, Elizabeth requested a separate seat for me, surprising everyone. The waiter guided me to a slightly hidden seat, and as the evening progressed, the anticipated meat dish raised expectations. While delicious-smelling dishes were constantly brought to Emily's table, George and Elizabeth received none. Elizabeth's loud complaint about the delay in their food drew the attention of nearby customers, leaving me in a state of surprise and anticipation for the unfolding events of the night. I deeply apologize. The chef is preparing something special for the 2 of you, so it's taking a little extra time. Please wait for just a bit longer. Despite her annoyance, Elizabeth's face showed a hint of satisfaction, knowing they were getting special treatment. Soon after, footsteps could be heard coming from the kitchen, and their expressions froze in surprise. It was me, dressed in a chef's hat and apron. What, Natalie? Why are you dressed like that? Is this your surprise? While Emily and her husband enjoyed my appearance, George and Elizabeth were taken aback. I gently smiled and set the specially arranged dishes before them. I've prepared a special menu just for the 2 of you. At the center of Elizabeth's plate, a beautiful black lump was garnished with a rich sauce. I'd accentuated this using a special sauce. I'll add a little more topping to this sauce. Pouring more sauce on the dish, I felt satisfied seeing Elizabeth's surprised face. And here's a special dish for you, sir. On George's plate, various delicacies were beautifully arranged, each shining brightly. Please try it with this special sauce. Placing an elegant sauce bottle on the table, I watched the service. Emily's daughter laughed cheerfully, and they both looked a bit surprised yet intrigued. However, their expressions soon turned to anger. This is unbelievable. I've never seen such inappropriate service. Call the manager. George exclaimed. I calmly replied, I'm the person in charge here. Is there a problem? Elizabeth joined in. Are you the one allowing such disrespectful service? This is unforgivable. We're going to exercise our rights as customers and sue you. I continued, feel free. But we're also considering legal action for the disruption you've caused. How dare you? It turned out that they often visited this restaurant and were always demanding. The staff already saw them as problematic customers, and now, with my brother Peter managing the restaurant, they were being treated impartially. Peter, Elizabeth, and George were utterly stunned upon realizing that the person in charge was my brother. In reality, this popular restaurant was a product of Peter's diligent management and hard work. They had not been informed of this fact before. Peter had previously undergone advanced training in France and couldn't attend our wedding. Although he had sent a generous gift, he had never spoken with Elizabeth or George. However, he remembered their faces from family pictures. We didn't know any of this. Could you explain? Emily asked, cheerful, but with a slight shadow in her eyes. Actually, we came here to dine with some shopkeepers from the town's marketplace. It's trendy these days to have dinner in such modern restaurants. At that moment, a staff member approached politely. During your last visit, you left behind an item. Please allow me to return it. Handing over a shimmering earring, Emily added, You often dine here with men wearing earrings. Isn't that a bit risky? George's face momentarily froze in surprise at Emily's question. How did I come to know of this secret? A few weeks ago, I harbored suspicions and decided to hire a detective to investigate. The result was a collection of photos depicting George enjoying dinners with another woman at this restaurant, and even moments where they entered a hotel together. To be honest, I felt more relieved than betrayed. Marrying him was a mistake. I'm planning to file for divorce. Just be prepared. This was the first time George had openly spoken about divorce. But for me, it was an anticipated moment. Just don't forget to pay the alimony. Don't worry. I recently secured a big business deal, and financially, I'm pretty well off now. I'll gladly pay all of the alimony in full. Hearing that gave me peace of mind. Now about you, Elizabeth. Until now, she had been wide-eyed at the unfolding conversation, known by the staff as a regular at this upscale restaurant. What do you want from me? Since my husband passed away, I don't think anyone has the right to complain about my behavior. However, I had also had a detective thoroughly investigate her secrets. It turned out she had been in a secret relationship for 5 years, even though her husband had passed away just a year ago. What are you talking about? Emily and her siblings, hearing this for the first time, stared at their mother in shocked anger. This revelation was unbearable for them, as they deeply cherished their father. Although I, too, was surprised by the investigation's outcome. When I asked the detective why he knew so much about Elizabeth, it turned out that their father had once hired the same detective agency. You deceived him for so long, even while he was still alive, and George, even while with Natalie, you were seeing another woman. How could you? In Emily and her siblings' eyes, deep anger and disappointment shaped the tense atmosphere at our table, catching the attention of other diners who started glancing our way. We promised to resolve this matter at home and called it a night for the dinner. As I left, I high-fived the restaurant staff and Peter, expressing my gratitude. A few days later, under the stern gaze of Emily and her siblings, George and I proceeded with the formal divorce process. Now I'm free. I won't regret anything, no matter what happens, he stated confidently. I never expected this outcome, even after I told you about my bad leg. I never imagined being treated this way. Ah, watch your step. She recoiled in surprise. In truth, her leg had already healed, yet she had been pretending to be in pain to maintain a superior attitude towards me. Her behavior once again left me in shock. From now on, both she and my husband will be strangers. Although our marriage ended within a short span of a year, I had no regrets whatsoever. When I checked my bank account, I was shocked to see that the alimony from both my husband and his mistress had been deposited simultaneously. It seemed like my husband covered her share as well. Knowing this fact, I could finally view them as no longer being a part of my life. Subsequently, there were some interesting developments regarding my husband and his mistress's relationship. He had gone into debt to pay the hefty alimony, but shortly after our divorce was finalized, she dumped him quite easily. From the information I received from Emily, it was revealed that the woman is infamous in the area for targeting married men. After the episode at the restaurant, we were informed by Peter that the regular patrons were also fed up with George and Elizabeth's antics, and they were elated by our surprise. From then on, the restaurant strictly prohibited those two from entering. Moreover, their dishonest attitudes quickly became known throughout the community. A major contract that my husband had been boasting about was eventually canceled, and his electronics store, sustained by the deep trust of the local community, now faced a challenging future. Elizabeth's subsequent life became quite difficult. Suddenly abandoned by her longtime lover, further medical tests revealed that her unhealthy lifestyle was affecting her health. Her health condition was significantly tied to her own way of living, which wasn't deserving of any sympathy. On the other hand, I was fortunate enough to return to the Western-style restaurant where I used to work. Even though they knew about my past, the staff and management warmly welcomed me back. The spaghetti lady, Emily, and her family still came to this restaurant often, and their presence was a significant support for me. They had decided to completely sever ties with George and Elizabeth. The anger towards their actions, especially after the passing of their father and the revelation of the truth, left a deep wound in their hearts, which seemed unlikely to heal. The joy of cooking holds a significant place in my life. Feeling this happiness is the very moment I cherish the most, and when I feel truly blessed.